Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm going to give it just a few minutes for everyone to get in, but thanks for coming. We're still climbing. Hi, everyone. Welcome. All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming today. My name is Julie Amberg. I am on the VMUG team and run the webcast program here. Thank you all for taking some time out of your day to join us today. Um, I would like to welcome you to today's webcast. It is Supercharge your VMware Automation with PowerCLI and ScriptRunner. So before we get started with our speaker, I did just want to give a couple housekeeping tips. So first, today's webcast is being recorded and it will be emailed to you once it's available on demand. So we'll send you that link if you want to rewatch. Um, Also, all of our webinars that we do here at VMUG are put on our on-demand page on our website. So if you're looking for one we've done in the past, they're all going to be there. Second, we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the webcast. If you have a question for our speaker, if you could just put it in the Q&A box versus the chat. Sometimes the chat can be a little hard to follow for the speaker just because there's so much going on. So if you have a question, please do put it in that Q&A box. And then third, there is going to be a short little survey that follows today's webcast. This will just have a couple questions on the speaker and the session and really what you want to see from us moving forward. So this helps, of course, our speakers and our sessions improve, but it also helps us find new content to share with you. So fill that out if you get a chance. It's really short. I think it's like 8 questions and takes only a few minutes to finish. And then lastly, ScriptRunner is doing a giveaway today. I believe it's a $100 gift card. So anyone who registered and opted in to share their information will be entered to win, and they will be contacted after today's webinar if you are the winner. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speaker, Heiko Brenn. He is an automation enthusiast, and he is with ScriptRunner. So Heiko, come on up to the front.
Hi, hello everyone. Hope you can hear me all. Great, yeah. Welcome to today's session. My name is Heiko. I'm with ScriptRunner, and I think we have an very interesting topic today. And it's how you can automate your VMware task with PowerCLI and with ScriptRunner. And let me start sharing my screen first. Yeah, excellent. All right. Yeah. So we're going to talk about how PowerShell, PowerCLI, together with ScriptRunner, enables you to automate your maybe most annoying task around VMware, and how ScriptRunner turns this technical PowerShell, PowerCLI technology into something that enables you to create a real automation platform out of the possibilities from PowerShell and PowerCLI. Very quickly about myself, I'm head of marketing and also automation PowerShell enthusiast. What does that mean? I'm in the industry for more than 30 years. I've been IT administrator, consultant, product manager, all kind of different areas. My first automations I did with things like obviously bat files and racks on IBM machines. So way back in the day. My first PowerShell experience was with Exchange 2007. And together with a colleague, I'm running a PowerShell user group where we have at least 4 times a year, we have online meetups. The next one is actually next week. It's going to be about the PowerShell Pesto module. And if you want to follow me or and our company, feel free to find us on the usual channels, so you know what we're up to and how we can help you on your automation journey. So obviously we are in the PowerShell automation business, and we are also trying to help people in the automation journey when they maybe start using PowerShell, or even if they're already advanced. And one thing that we're offering, we have more than 1900 PowerShell script on our GitHub repo for all kinds of different use cases and platforms, obviously including VMware as well, but other platforms like Active Directory and things like that. So feel free to look at that, and yeah, take these scripts maybe for your inspiration, maybe. And another thing that we are providing are a couple of free PowerShell resources. We have a PowerShell cheat sheet. That's kind of your get help for your office wall, but it's of course also available as a PDF. Then we have cheat sheets for Active Directory in PowerShell, for Teams, for Exchange, for MS Graph, and we have a PowerShell security ebook. And we're also working on a cheat sheet for VMware and PowerShell, so for PowerCLI, basically, of course. So stay tuned for that. That's also going to be available pretty soon. So for those of you who maybe not know what ScriptRunner is all about and what we're doing, a quick introduction before later on we are diving deeper into how this actually all works. So ScriptRunner is basically the beating heart of modern IT automation. So we are providing all kinds of processes that help you and platform that helps you to automate all kinds of different areas when it comes to infrastructure. That again, of course, includes VMware as well. And yeah, we have customers around the world where we help them to be more successful on a daily basis by automating all kinds of different tasks and processes. Here are a few examples. So a customer will say 4,000 hours in just 18 months, where we help them to build functionalities in combination, in this case, for example, with SAP. And of course, also around processes like onboardings, provisionings, and things like that. And if you want to learn more also about these topics, number one, of course, we have a couple of success stories on our website. And we also have a white paper that kind of shows you how PowerShell and of course ScriptRunner can help you to optimize the way that you are automating your infrastructure tasks and processes. So feel free to download that as well. All right, so this brings us to our agenda, 2 topics. So we're going to start with, okay, what can you do with PowerShell and PowerCLI in its native form, so to speak? We're going to take a look at a couple of examples here. And then in the second part, we're going to take a look at how we can take this technology, the possibilities with PowerCLI and scripts and commandlets, and how we can turn that into a platform for your overall IT automation strategy. And so starting, of course, with the PowerCLI, it's been available for many, many years. VMware, in fact, I think was one of the first third-party vendors that introduced their own module when Microsoft introduced PowerShell back in 2006. So it's obviously very mature, very stable. It covers a lot of aspects when it comes to managing VMware. It has hundreds of commandlets, which we are not all covering, of course, today. So we're going to take a look at a few examples here. And I just recently checked. So there are, based on the PowerShell gallery, from where you can download it, the PowerCLI module, we have about 14.2 million downloads, which is quite a lot. And of course, it supports all kinds of different products. So if you go to the Broadcom PowerCLI webpage, you will see that there are commandlets available for all kinds of different areas, for vSphere, for Cloud Director, for Operations Manager, and so on. And then, of course, there are also, let's say, the low-level commandlets that you already can use to automate things in VCF. In fact, I had the chance to attend a session last week at the user conference where one of the leaders of the PowerCLI development team explained all the possibilities, and also this information is available on the website when you look into the actual API section of the developer website. All right, so examples. So what are things that we see with our customers, how they use PowerCLI and PowerShell to manage VMware? We see everything around, obviously, creating, managing, removing VMs, changing configurations, adding new configurations to it. And then, of course, we have all this area about what happens with existing VMs, starting, stopping, restarting them. Then another important area we see, of course, quite often is managing snapshots and the overall infrastructure maintenance. And last but not least, of course, also creating reports, getting some information about how is the current state of my VMware infrastructure. And with this, let's move over to the first demos. So here I have a couple of snippets that we can look at to see, okay, what you can actually do with native PowerShell and PowerCLI, so to speak. So of course, first things first, before you can start interacting with your VMware infrastructure via PowerShell, of course, you need to install the module. So that's pretty straightforward. It's the VMware PowerCLI module where you get all the different parts. It's a huge module. So sometimes it also might make sense to maybe just pick the things that you really want to use, because that helps you when in the background later on you say, okay, now I want to use it, and how many commandlets need to be loaded so you can start using it. So that's step one, of course. You need to have the module. And then the next step, it's about connecting, where in my case, I'm connecting here to my local machine with the Connect VI server infrastructure. And so to check if that's actually working, okay, I just do a quick get VM, which shows me, okay, I'm connected, and I get I wouldn't call it a report, I get a small list of the existing machines that I have here in my environment. So, okay, so we are off to the races, and we are connected, we have the module, we are ready to do additional things here. And if depending, so if you're new to PowerShell, of course there is a specific way how these commandlets work and how they're named. So there are a lot. Typically you start with the get commands that give you, like the get VM we just looked at, that gives you a first information. So you're not changing anything. So as long as you're just using the get commands, there's no possibility to make something wrong and to change anything that you don't want. So yeah, so that's always a good, especially if you're maybe coming into a new environment, looking around to see, okay, what's going on, what machines do I have, how is the configuration, things like that. That's always a good starting point. And then of course you could, for example, start getting using the get VM and say, okay, I only want to have specific information, and you want to pipe it to our grid view. So you get this information not only here in the command line, so you get a kind of a proper report of your environment with the out grid view. So, and that's also, as you can see, it's just a one-liner. So, and that's the nice thing that I'm always really like about PowerShell, so that you don't have to be the scripting expert to benefit from what PowerCLI and PowerShell is offering. You can start with a couple of one-liners that already help you in your daily business. For example, like here, to get some information, or maybe in the grid view, or you want to export it to a file. That's of course a possibility to also maybe later on schedule that, saying, okay, I want to have this report, let's say every Friday, for example. I'm exporting it to a CSV file or to other format, and then maybe I'm automatically sending it to me or to my manager, things like that. So these are all scenarios where the get commands alone already get you some useful information. And what we see here, for example, in line 89 is where you can start introducing the where object, where you kind of start creating filters, so to speak, where you say, okay, I only want to see all the VMs that are powered off right now. So that's where you start to include more functionality from the PowerShell side, where you start, okay, what I'm actually looking for instead of the whole list, for example. And so as you can see, that goes on for many other scenarios. And then at one point, okay, so we have done all the get stuff. And then what you could do, of course, is you can, for example, use the start VM or stop VM to very easily say, okay, I want to, for example, if we go to line 120 here, again, like the previous one, I want to take a look at all the machines that are powered off, and I want to start them. That's what happens here in the pipeline. First, I'm looking for the VMs who are powered off, and then all the machines that come back, I want to start them. And then here, very important, is the what if parameter, which enables you to simulate what you are trying to achieve. Meaning before actually something happens, it will tell you the results. So saying, okay, yes, so this would be the machines that we would power off. So this is like the list of machines that if I'm disabling what if will actually start. And I can check if that's what I want. And if that's correct, and if that I'm happy with the result, then I can say, okay, now, which I will not do, but then I say, okay, then I can just disable the parameter here, and then you actually start all the VMs that have the status powered off. And of course, that's just one example, but with this way of looking at the PowerShell possibilities, you can, of course, think of, I guess, hundreds of different other scenarios where this can help you. And of course, the same way that you can look for the powered off ones and start them, you can do the same. And of course, then in addition, of course, you can combine it with, okay, but I only want to look for specific machines that maybe follow a specific name pattern or things like that. So this is how step by step the way that you work with PowerShell might evolve. You might add additional parameters, additional commandlets, and finally ending up with with a script that does more advanced things. Maybe, for example, like moving VMs from one host to another, which is in its simplest form also just a one-liner. So it can help you immediately. And then, because also that's something we mentioned in one of the slides previously, of course, snapshot management. So it's very easy to create new snapshots. So you have the new snapshot commandlet for maybe a specific machine, or like what we see here. Again, it would be kind of a bulk process, taking snapshots from all your machines. Again, of course, you could combine it with more where object information, where say I only want to do it for specific machines. So this is, again, of course, the big benefit of doing things here with PowerShell and PowerCLI, because especially if you are in this area of, okay, you have some bulk processes where you want to do things and not step by step or via a GUI, then of course that these are perfect scenarios to start, if you're not already using it, to start using PowerCLI and PowerShell to automate these things. And again, as you can see, it's not rocket science. You don't need to be the scripting expert, so you can already start using it. And then, it might evolve into for example, something like this, where you define you want to get information about your snapshots in general. So this could be, for example, let's try to run this. This might take a little bit, but it should be okay. So this is kind of a snippet that goes through all the VMs and takes all the snapshot information and is hopefully coming back with a report that is being piped into the out grid view, so that again we have a nice overview about our existing snapshots, for example. So here it is. Right. And again, putting it into our grid view is one thing, of course, but creating real report files, obviously, another good idea. And even creating a HTML file, which also happened in the background in this case, where we actually use the convert to HTML to actually create a HTML file that contains the same information that, again, I can use to send around on a scheduled base, for example. And so this yeah, this brings us to the other topic here, of course, last but not least, creating new VMs either from scratch or, of course, more likely taking them from templates. So use the new VM command that, for example, to define all the different infrastructure default settings that you want to use when it comes to storage, when it comes to networking, things like that. And then again, creating maybe bulk machines instead of doing it one by one. Could be for trainings, could be for a department that needs a set of new VMs. And yeah, so these are yeah, again, just some examples how PowerCLI enables you to automate things, starting with really simple use cases and then make them maybe bigger and adding new functionality to it. And that's, of course, a great way for you as the system engineer or automation architect, automation engineer, to make your life easier because you automate the tasks that you have to run already maybe 5 times a day or maybe even more often. And then at one point, and that's what we see with a lot of our customers, say, okay, now we have maybe already dozens of scripts that we are using in IT, in the IT operations team. And now it's about, then the idea comes up, okay, how could we use that, number one, or how can we organize this in a central way that everybody uses the same version of the scripts? So that if the questions come up, where's the latest script to deploy new VMs? So you have a central place you can look at where everything comes together, where you can manage your scripts, your modules, the credentials, of course, to connect to your environment, and maybe thinking about, okay, what if I could empower someone in service desk, tier 1, tier 2 people, to trigger specific tasks without asking IT operations teams if some tickets come in to maybe stop, start, restart a VM or restore a snapshot or something like this. And this is exactly where the combination of PowerShell and PowerCLI together with our ScriptRunner solution comes into the picture, because that's exactly what you can do with our solution, because ScriptRunner sits on top of your infrastructure and the PowerShell layer, so to speak. So what we looked at right now was we have our VMware environment, we have our PowerCLI module as the technical foundation, and ScriptRunner sits on top of that as a IT automation platform that combines the versatility, all the great things that you can do with PowerShell, with an enterprise grade management platform. So that means also that besides what we're looking at right now, of course, VMware, it can be used for all kinds of different platforms as long as it can be automated with PowerShell. And there is a long way to go, right? There are so many different possibilities with PowerShell. So you can start with VMware, but of course, many other platforms can be automated as well. So you can have one single solution to automate all kind of different platforms. And that also means that you can integrate that, for example, into situations where, for example, for a new deployment of a VM, there might be a ticket that starts in ServiceNow or in Jira or in Ivanti or SAP or whatever system it might be. And then this is where you organize the process, where you have an approval process, and then somebody approves the process, and then, okay, now we need to actually create the VMs. And then you can use connectors to say, okay, ServiceNow can talk to ScriptRunner to say, okay, we need to deploy this number of new VMs with this configurations or based on this templates, and then ScriptRunner takes care of that. And of course, is communicating in an end-to-end automation fashion. So you can start with routine tasks up to complex processes that you can automate. And what comes with this as well is monitoring. So all the activities that happens based on PowerCLI and PowerShell is monitored. You get a detailed report. You can see what user, what process, or maybe you have a scheduled process that you want to run, and you can see the technical results. You can see if it was successful. You can use it to start to debug if something maybe didn't work. And that also, of course, includes the possibility to build new scripts based and with the help of ChatGPT, for example. So there is an option. So AI can help you to create new scripts, but also to modify existing scripts. So it's basically about having a central way to govern everything about PowerShell and to make your life easier when it comes to automating the tasks for yourself, but also think about teams like help desk team, service desk team, or maybe even creating self-service scenarios for maybe some power users in your line of business areas. And so the overall idea, if you want to make it very, very high level, is ScriptRunner is changing this first, maybe non-managed way of using PowerShell, where you have scripts in different places, written by different people, and maybe also not standardized in the way that they are written, and into something that you can really, where you can say, now I have a centralized way of managing everything that I need to successfully use PowerShell with PowerCLI and other modules, where it's easy and secure to manage all the credentials that we need, where I can start to delegate tasks, where I have a centralized monitoring. And to take you a little bit closer here to the topic, when we talk about running the scripts, there are basically three ways how you can do that. One is delegation. So you enable someone, maybe a junior admin, to spin up new VMs, or someone tier 1, tier 2 teams in your service desk, help desk organization, or as mentioned, maybe you want to create some self-service scenarios, maybe for reports and things like that. So that's the delegation part. The scheduled part is where you can centralize everything that has to do with creating reports, housekeeping processes, managing snapshots, things like that. So what we see here is that oftentimes organizations, they struggle with things like Windows Task Scheduler, because it's, well, maybe not the best way to also organize it, in the sense of, okay, do I get information back if the scheduling didn't run successfully, for example, things like that. So this is where you can use ScriptRunner as your platform to centralize all your scheduled tasks. And the third, event-driven, here what we see comes back to the idea of end-to-end automation, where based on specific events that might be triggered again in ServiceNow, Jira, SAP, workflow systems, Boomi, and you want to enable these systems to trigger your scripts based on connectors, based on basically REST connections. So these are the three ways how you can trigger the scripts. And all of these executions, of course, they become available in the monitoring and reporting engine. So you can see in detail what kind of scripts have been executed, no matter based on which module, on which use case. You can see who triggered it, what have been the technical inputs, like the parameters, what have been the outcome. And that, of course, helps you also, especially maybe in cases where something didn't work successfully. And then you can use this as well and start analyzing why maybe a connection failed, for example. Another area in this monitoring section are the statistics. And the statistics are here to give you information about how much time and money do we actually save by automating? So for each use case, the time savings and the cost savings can be analyzed. That's of course very useful when it comes to questions like why do we even automate, and what are the benefits? What kind of tasks are the ones that save us the most, for example? Typical maybe management question. So you can use that to answer this. And then you have the live monitor, and that's kind of a real-time view on what's actually going on right now, what kind of scripts are running, including the option of to cancel the execution. And the reason why all this is possible is because now when you're using ScriptRunner with your PowerShell scripts, it's not a user that is running a script. They are all executed centrally. And that's why, of course, this information becomes available and helps you to stay in control, to see and to get all the information that you need to make sure, okay, everything is green, everything works good. And the way that you do that is, for example, you start to centralize your scripts. So here we have a screenshot of our portal. I will show you it later on live as well. So here is the script section. So you see the existing scripts. Of course, you can also add new scripts. This is also the area where you can use ChatGPT to create new scripts or modify existing ones. There is a code editor that you can use right here. There's also an extension for VS Code and an add-on for the good old ISE as well. And of course, you can synchronize it with code management systems like GitHub, Azure DevOps, Bitbucket, and others. So that if you already have your pipeline, your DevOps pipeline going on somewhere else, then you can integrate that with ScriptRunner as well. So, but this means here you have a centralized repository, or maybe even multiple repositories for the scripts that you want to use for your automation. And then from the security perspective, number one, of course, the question, okay, where and how do I manage the credentials that I need to use to connect to my VMware environment or to other environments as well. And here again, it's centralized, of course, and you can store them locally. You can store them in Azure Key Vault, for example, or in password servers. So right now, we have connectors for CyberArk, Pleasant, and Delinear. Many more are coming in the next couple of months. Why is that helpful? Because now you even more centralizing the way that you use PowerShell by having all the credentials. You have one single source of truth for all the credentials. And what happens is that ScriptRunner is going to ask via the connectors, the password server, in real time when there's a script that wants to connect to maybe a specific part of your VMware environment. And also in scenarios where maybe thinking about running multiple ScriptRunner instances. Again, you have a single source of truth. You don't have to manage your credentials on a server by server base. So that's of course the best way to manage that and to take take the best benefit from this centralization scenario. The other aspect of security is here then, of course, when we talk about, okay, I want to enable, again, tier 1, tier 2 people, service desk people creating self-services here for these people here on the left side. So this might be a junior admin inside of your IT operations team. So what is necessary here, of course, is that none of these users have to have any access to the actual backend system. And that's exactly what happens here. So all the, let's say, PowerShell logistics happens here in the background. So ScriptRunner takes care of executing the scripts, accessing the connections, or managing the connections, the delegations, the credentials. So that's all happening exactly right here in the background. And the users on the other side, right here on the left side, they don't have to have any access to this infrastructure, backend, scripts, modules, and credentials whatsoever. So it's a complete separation. And so what you do instead, you use ScriptRunner, you define roles where you define this group of people should be enabled to work and to run this kind of tasks and processes. based on, again, of course, your underlying PowerShell scripts. But you can be very specific. You can be as granular as necessary to make sure that the right people are enabled to do the right things. And that might be, of course, different, maybe because of different roles, different regions, different responsibilities. And that's what you manage within ScriptRunner. And another important part, which we're going to take a look at as well, when we talk about these people here on the left side, of course, we don't want them to be on the command line and hacking away commandlets and making mistakes and not knowing what the parameters are and things like that. And that's why we have our portal. We have our portal widget that makes it very, very easy for everyone to use it, where nobody needs to know anything about PowerShell, because it's all just a web front end, which I'm also going to show you, of course. So here, again, the important aspect is that we have a complete separation between what happens in the PowerShell backend and how the users are interacting and are, let's say, empowered to trigger specific tasks, which brings us to the last slide here, almost last slide before we go again to my machine. So what happens when you use your scripts with ScriptRunner is automatically translating every PowerShell script into a web form. So meaning what you see on the right side has really nothing to do with PowerShell. It's just a form. It is built based on your scripts in the background, and you decide, for example, also what kind of selections a user is able to do, what kind of parameters are even visible, which ones are hidden. So you can define your standard approach, no matter if it's triggered by user A or B or by a scheduled process or event-driven. And again, of course, that can be different with different areas. So the question, okay, what kind of VMs can I select from the list here might be different if I'm a person that is working in New York or another person that's working in San Francisco, for example. So again, depending on the role, this can be as granular as necessary to make sure that people are only allowed to do the right things. And so based on that, you can start to delegate all kinds of different tasks. So this is a screenshot that shows a role of, for example, a tier 1, tier 2 person, or maybe a junior admin. Each tile represents a use case. We have here a huge mix of things that happens with VMware, but also with other platforms, with other backends, because again, we're talking PowerShell, so it can be all kinds of different scenarios. And the question, what and which tiles I'm seeing here depends on who's logging in and what kind of role and what kind of actions, as we call them, you can think of it as a runbook, is defined to a specific group of users. So maybe some users logging in and they maybe only see 2 or 3 tiles, or like in this case, this person can do a lot of different things because that's the role that this person is in. That's why we see all this different the different tasks here. But it becomes very easy. It has nothing to do with PowerShell. It is managed and executed with PowerShell in the background, but you decide again who is able to use it, and it becomes a very, very easy task. So with this, let me jump back to my VM and let's move away from this world into this world. So here we are in the ScriptRunner portal. And we have basically 2 roles. One is being an administrator in ScriptRunner. That means, for example, I have access to all the reports. So to all the activities that happened, and I can see, okay, most of it is green. That's good, but some things maybe don't work. So maybe I could go in here and see why that's the case. So probably because some connection is not working. In this case, for example. So you get a great overview about what's going on based on all the activities. You can see there's a lot of schedule stuff going on. Here we're creating snapshots on a scheduled base. I can go in here. I can see actually what's happening behind the scenes. If I'm interested, I can see the result message. If something would go wrong, I could see this as well. And you can always, of course, you also use additional filters. Say, okay, I'm only interested. Okay, it's great when everything works, but I want to see all the things where I had a problem. So I can go in here and I can start analyzing that. So you have a complete overview about all the activities here. And then again, you have the statistics I mentioned earlier, where it says, okay, how much time and money do we actually save? And the way that this works is that with every use case, you can define how much time you're actually saving, and then we calculate how often this action has been triggered, and then you can correlate it to an hourly rate, and then that's how we come up with this number here. And then last but not least, we have the live monitor where you can see what's actually going on right now. And we can maybe go back later to that to see what happens if something is actually running. So you can see the activities. So just like right here, and you could even go in here and see what's actually happening. And I could also stop the activity if I would like to do that, for example. This was finished, I think, very, very quickly, so it's already done. Okay, so that's the monitoring section. Then what we are actually automating is what we call actions. So the actions are the actual use cases that you would like to automate, to delegate, to monitor. And here we already see, a couple of examples when it comes to VMware, obviously. So we can go into the first one here, for example, where you can see, okay, this is creating reports of all our VMs. And it happens on a scheduled base. So here I can see, okay, these reports are being created every Monday, every Friday at 9 o'clock and 12 o'clock. For whatever reason. Or it could be, okay, I want to run it every 5 minutes, or maybe every day, or maybe 3 times a month. So this is where you can get all the scheduled configurations into ScriptRunner. And if you look into the configuration, what you see here is that, of course, it all relies on a underlying script. And in this case, it's a pretty straightforward script, and because here we can see what parameters do we have? We have 2 properties and one that's called only powered on. And that's all that we have here. The interesting part is now, okay, how does this connect to my VMware environment? And this brings us to the targets. So here you define to which backend or backends, could be multiple ones as well, this action is connected to. So where should it connect to run the script? Against which environment? And again, talking PowerShell can be all kinds of different backends. In this case, it could be also multiple VMware environments, of course, or vSphere environments. I can define if I would run it in Windows PowerShell or PowerShell 7. I can centralize functions that I use all the time into library scripts. And then, of course, you can say, okay, and I want to delegate that to a specific group of users. So maybe my user help desk tier 1, tier 2 people, or to specific teams in a specific region, for example. This is how you define who is actually being able to work with that. And if you are in a multi-language scenario, and I will switch to the help desk role so you can see what it actually means, because you can have all kinds of descriptions in English, German, Spanish, and French. And so let's take this as a first example to take a look at how this actually looks like from a help desk perspective. So now we're moving away from the admin role into a help desk role, which looks like this. So here I'm logged in as a help desk, service desk person, and these are the actions that I have available when it comes to VMware, because that's what I selected. But as you can see here on top, it can be anything else, and this is kind of the screenshot that we saw on the slides earlier. So it can be, again, all kinds of different scenarios and platforms. But let's start with the first one. So this is what I see from a user perspective to create a VM report. VMware report. So, and the reason why I got this, we had this second parameter was I could say, okay, show me only the ones that I actually started, or I want to have a complete view on the report. Now, that might take a little bit. Now, what I can do is, because it's running now in the background, I can click on close, and I can move on to the next task because everything happens in the background. And later on, I can come back and take a look at the results, because now I could say, I want to power off a machine, for example. So I could say, okay, this is the list of the existing VMs. Now, if I'm not responsible for all VMs, we could filter down the list to only the ones that I'm actually responsible for. Now I could say, okay, and I want to stop this VM. Again, now it's running in the background. And again, I can close it and I can move on to the next task and say, okay, maybe I need to change some configurations. And again, here I can take a look at my VMs. I could say maybe I want to change the number of virtual CPUs, which I think will not work for whatever reason. I just checked it; it didn't work. But anyway, I will start it anyway. So we can also take a look at an error, which is always a good thing as well. So again, I can click on Run. I click on Close, and so you get the idea, right? So you can provide possibilities to trigger all kinds of different tasks at the same time in parallel, depending on what responsibility I have. And what I can do now, because the first one already were triggered, I can go to the reports, and here I'm seeing the things that I have triggered in the past. So this is kind of the subset of the overall reporting. And I can see, oh yeah, this is a fancy little message, maybe a little bit over the top, but you get the idea. So here this says, okay, the stopping of this specific machine was successful. If you want to just have it in plain text, it's another option, of course, as well. So here, this shows me, okay, this execution was successful. And also, obviously, let's go to the report. And in this case, it's a HTML report. So here I see the status of all my VMs that I triggered. So based on that, all kinds of different tasks can be delegated. And one way of doing this is it via the portal right here. What you could also do, you could say, I'm having a self-service portal or an internet website, and this is where I want to integrate specific use cases, specific actions from ScriptRunner. Of course, here again, I need to be authenticated, so we can check, is the user allowed to do whatever these actions are doing. But this is actually the easiest way to get access to this kind of tasks that are, again, remember, in the background is all PowerShell, but it has nothing to do with PowerShell from the user perspective, because it's just a set of parameters in the web interface. And so based on that, yeah, you can integrate and delegate all kinds of different tasks. Of course, it's based on the scripts. So what we can do here, we can go and filter down to all my VMware scripts. I can go in here, I can see the header information, I can see the code itself. I can check out and check in scripts. So if you're not using something like Git and Azure DevOps, this is a way to make sure you have multiple people being enabled to work on the scripts. If you want to do that, you have a concept of ownership. So you can say, I want to use this for my VMware automation. So only the VMware team is able to work with the VMware scripts. And then maybe I have an Active Directory team and they are also working with ScriptRunner, but if they log in, they only see the AD information, for example. You have a change history. You can go back to previous versions. You can create scripts from scratch. You can have access to our 1900 scripts on our GitHub repo. I talked about that. We have all the scripts for VMware here as well. For example, if you want to have a script to create new snapshots, for example, or you're using our ChatGPT integration where you say, okay, I want to create a new script. And then let's say if ChatGPT is in a good mood, it gets a good result back. and not only the code, but also a well optimized way or script that works perfectly with ScriptRunner. Credentials, another thing that I want to quickly touch on before we move on to the Q&A. So here you manage all the credentials that you need to connect to your VMware environment, but any other environment as well. And then the targets, these are the actual systems that we want to connect to in the background. So here we have one for my VMware environment. I centralize the connection and disconnecting to my machine. The advantage here is later on, as you could see in one of the actions, I only mapped my action to this target, and the target knows what to do. It knows where to connect to, how to disconnect. I could have advanced settings. If I have a jump host in between, all the things can be done here as well. And the reason why we could pick and choose from the list of machines, for example, was because here we have queries that comes back with a list of VMs, list of networks, list of storage systems, things like that. And all that ends up again when we execute it, of course, here in the reporting. So from all the things that we just triggered here, we could see that there was this user Tina, and she created this report. So this is now the central view where you can see all the executions. All right, so let's get back quickly to the presentation to kind of wrap up what we looked at right here. So yeah, the overall idea, of course, here is if you look at the different roles in your organizations, if you use ScriptRunner, from the IT operations perspective, you standardize all your tasks and processes. You save time by automating all the different tasks and processes from a help desk, service desk perspective. Of course, they can enhance their service. They can be faster because they don't have to wait until somebody in operations is able to do something. If you create some end user self-services for maybe, for example, creating reports or maybe even things like starting VMs manually, then of course these people are empowered to do this themselves very quickly. From a perspective of people who are building scripts, of course, now with this platform, you can have much more value to the organization because the scripts that you build are not just being used by IT operations, but maybe throughout the whole organization. And from a DevOps perspective, of course, it provides a secure environment for all the different areas when it comes to working with the scripts. And from the management perspective, consistent processes, better quality, being able to fulfill all the CLAs and maybe improving the CLAs, of course, as well. And if you would like, if you say, okay, this sounds interesting, I would like to start and testing it myself, you're very welcome to do that. You can try it out yourself in your environment for 30 days. That includes also access to our support. If you have questions about use cases, implementing maybe your existing scripts into the platform. If you have individual questions, yeah, would be happy to talk to you about that. What kind of IT scenarios, automation scenarios you would like to automate, what kind of maybe infrastructure requirements you have, and how or what would be the best way to implement ScriptRunner in your environment so we can help you on your automation journey and automate as much as possible in a secure and centralized way. And so with this, I would say we can go to the Q&A session. And
Yes,
Michael, you are,
therefore it's me.
it's you. Excellent.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think I covered most of the questions already. One question was regarding the RV tools. That is like a tool that is going to do some reporting stuff. You can export an environment in like a CSV file. And I think what we can point out here is that for the limited use case, it's quite usable. I already know this tool because I was a former VMware consultant. But I want to mention that, let's say it this way, ScriptRunner is capable of doing more and give you a broader overview on it.
Okay, great. Any other questions we should cover?
Yeah, one was about migration scenario, pre and post migration of virtual machine like templates. We have customers that already implemented that. One question was regarding security and service accounts. That is something we can cover because in the latest version, ScriptRunner does also support the usage of group managed service accounts. So with the embedded or with the mechanism to rotate the password, this enhance the security. I just wanted to point that out.
Yes, exactly. And it's connected to the concept of targets, because this is where you define where to connect to and what kind of credential, what kind of accounts should be used to connect to the backend system. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and one question, maybe you can say some words about the licensing. I mark this as an open, as we haven't speak about it.
Yeah, so that's of course an interesting and important question. So the solution is licensed based on the different I would say options inside of our solution. So the question is how you want to use ScriptRunner, in the sense of, okay, to how many users do you want to have access to the system, in either as an administrator or maybe as a help desk person? Do you want to use end-to-end automation with connections to ServiceNow, Jira, and so on? Do you want to use password servers in your environment? So, and with all these questions answered, we can provide a customized package for you. So to make it really as detailed as possible, the best way here really would be to get in touch with us so that we can come up with the right solution for you. Also, when it comes to the way that how long, so what's your long-term goal for using ScriptRunner? Is it for VMware only? Are you planning to bring other teams with other infrastructures into the scenario as well, like AD, Office 65, AWS, SQL Server, things like that? So again, here, I think the best way is really to get in touch with us directly to discuss all these details, so we better understand what you would like to achieve, and so that we can come up with a fitting offer for you.
Thank you. I think that's it. Yeah, that's a wrap. I think we covered all the rest.
Perfect. Then, yeah, again, thanks a lot for attending. I hope you got some good insights, and I hope also to motivate you to use PowerShell and PowerCLI and integrate into your daily routines. And as mentioned in the beginning, we have a lot of different free resources to help you on your journey with PowerShell. Thank you.
Thanks, Heiko. Really appreciate everyone taking their time to come with us today, and thanks for the ScriptRunner team for coming and talking to us. Just as a reminder, we are going to be sending out a video of the recording, and we'll include all the links that were shared in the chat as well, so that you have those accessible after today's call. And if you want to find out more about upcoming webcasts, they're all on the VMUG events page. You can find those. And then again, just a real quick plug to please fill out that the information about what you thought about today's session, as well as what you might want to hear about in the future. But thanks everyone for coming today, and I hope you learned something. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.